Hi everyone, I'm gonna attempt to, I guess I could use the mic, maybe a little attachment mic, so maybe I'll just try this one. Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the UCSF Center for Diversity and the Student Services, Sexual Assault Student Services. And also thank you all for being here and for taking time to learn more about sexual assault and just really honor the work that we're doing around educating ourselves about sexual assault. I just want to start off by giving some information, to start off with some data from the Rainin Foundation. The Rainin Foundation is a network, a national network that provides lots of information and technical assistance around sexual assault. And so if you're ever looking for more information about sort of what the landscape looks like in the United States, it's a really great repository of information. So from the Rainin Foundation, they say that sexual assault affects 1 in 6 females throughout the country, but men are also at risk, the highest risk being amongst college-aged men and also men in the prison system. Gender nonconforming young people are also disproportionately affected by sexual assault. And a woman in the military has a higher risk of being sexually assaulted in the military by another military officer than she does if she were to be in civilian life. So we know this is something that's pervasive, that is seen throughout all of our communities in many different walks of life. The Rainin Foundation offers a wide breadth of information about sexual assault, but sometimes throughout data and research, there's not so much captured around other structural inequities that may lead people to be more vulnerable to being assaulted. So I just want to give some information about that as well. Racism. In the United States, being a part of an ethnic group that is not given the same protective status as other ethnic groups, particularly African Americans and Latinos versus whites, leave people more vulnerable to trauma in addition to sexual assault. Poverty. In the United States, living in poverty and exposure to violence really have become synonymous. They really go hand in hand. Those in poverty are usually living in areas with high concentrations of violence and low police response to personal assaults in spite of heavy policing in their communities. This leaves people more vulnerable to sexual assault. Something we should remember, most people in the United States living in poverty are working every day, like you and I. However, the jobs that they have don't pay enough for economic upward mobility. So again, poverty leaves people more vulnerable to sexual assault. The prison system. As I mentioned before, people in the US prison system, both men and women, are at increased risk of sexual assault. 60% of all sexual violence against inmates is perpetrated by jail or prison staff. Threat of sexual assault is also used as a way to control inmates by other inmates, by prison staff, and to ensure good behavior. Often a blind eye is turned to this severe form of sexual trauma against people who are incarcerated. So our current prison system leaves people more vulnerable to sexual assault. Overall, vulnerable populations. Vulnerable populations consist of people who've been affected by systems or structural circumstances that cause them to have greater exposure or less protection from sexual assault. These populations often go unnoticed, unrecognized, and uncounted in recordings in our data around sexual assault. Some of the unrecognized, unnoticed, and uncounted are children and youth affected by sex trafficking, which is also commercial sexual exploitation, unstably housed youth who trade sex for survival, again, LGBT youth and adults, and those affected by labor trafficking and labor exploitation, many of whom are undocumented individuals. So being vulnerable and being exposed also lends people to be more at risk of sexual assault. This story of Reese Taylor is one of tragedy, and it's one of courage, one of strength, and most of all, one of action. Ms. Taylor focused her lifelong recovery on action. Let us follow her in her footsteps. As we learn more and are witness to the horrors of sexual assault, let us also focus on action. By the end of this film, 55 people in the United States would have been sexually assaulted. So in the spirit of Reese Taylor, and to honor the 200 Nigerian girls kidnapped and sexually assaulted by Boko Haram, and those girls who escaped Boko Haram only to be sexually assaulted by Nigerian militia, to honor the struggles of women in the U.S. cinema industry who what they endured when all they wanted to do was have a thriving career in Hollywood, as just like their male counterparts. To honor the 2.2 million inmates in the U.S. prison system whose sentence never included forfeiture of their bodies. And to honor the stolen childhood of very young girls who walk the streets and wait in hotel rooms right here in the Bay Area. As you watch this film, remember to ask yourself, what can I do about it? Thanks so much.